Coming up next on Headline Humboldt, a man was shot and killed by Eureka police this week after a pursuit and altercation near the Eureka branch of the Humboldt County Library. Also, Natalynne, DeLapp, and Ross Gordon from the Humboldt County Growers Alliance join us to discuss the county's decision this week to pass on crafting an initiative to run as an alternative to Measure A, deciding instead to wait and see what voters do. Coming up now on Headline Humboldt. From the top of Humboldt Hill, this is Headline Humboldt. I'm James Falk. Thanks for joining us. I remember as a college student flippantly arguing that with cannabis legalization, Humboldt County would ascend to a new level of wealth and success. As I saw it at the time, the evidence was all around us. Vast sums of money were already flowing into Humboldt County because of black market weed, and at the time, medicinal cannabis had proven promising. We had the product, we had the climate, we had the brand. All this rocket needed, I felt at the time, was a flame to light the fuse. All these years later, I'm shocked at my own naivete. In the mad rush of developments after California's legalization, weed businesses have indeed proliferated, and some folks have made good money satisfying the market's demands and following up on the promise of those early years. But the situation is complicated. The market is flooded, farmers all over the region are struggling, with many dropping out entirely, and both local and state regulations seem confusing and at times ill-equipped to handle the job. Enter Measure A, the Humboldt Cannabis Reform Initiative. Some vocal opponents of the current regulatory regime have proposed a fix in Measure A remedy that many view as overly restrictive and based on misperceptions of what's actually happening. This new initiative, industry insiders say, could potentially be the death knell to many in the business. The fear of this initiative's impacts prompted the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors last month to direct staff to craft a competing initiative that would make some useful regulatory changes without many of the destructive attributes of Measure A. But this week, after hearing from their constituents, supervisors opted to forego that alternative initiative and see what the voters decide about the HCRI in March. We'll be joined in a few short moments by Natalynne, DeLapp, and Ross Gordon from the Humboldt County Growers Alliance. We'll discuss how we got here, how farmers are truly faring in this moment, and what passage of Measure A would mean to local farmers. We'll also discuss a new law sponsored by State Senator Mike McGuire, the Cannabis Licensing Reform Act, which will allow cannabis farmers to either pause their license fee but maintain an inactive license, or reduce their license size based on crop size, saving the farmer money. But first, the news. This past Sunday at around 9:30 a.m., a man was shot and killed by Eureka police after a short chase and ensuing altercation. According to Eureka police, officers attempted to stop a vehicle near 2nd and M Streets Sunday morning. While officers attempted to secure the area, a 31-year-old man inside the vehicle fled the scene and was later found near the rear of the Humboldt County Library. When officers tried to detain the man, a fight ensued. The suspect allegedly produced a gun, and as a result, officers fired their weapons. The suspect was wounded, and though life-saving efforts were undertaken, he died at the scene. His name has not been released. The Humboldt County Critical Incident Response Team, led by the Eureka Police Department and the Humboldt County District Attorney's Office, has been activated to investigate. The events were captured on body-worn cameras and will be released upon completion of the investigation as required by state law. Anyone with information is asked to call 441-4215. As mentioned, the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors this week opted to forego its plans to place a county-backed initiative on the March ballot to serve as alternative to the Humboldt Cannabis Reform Initiative, or Measure A. County officials had hoped the county's initiative would provide what they felt was a more reasonable alternative to Measure A, which many believe could hurt an already suffering cannabis industry. Instead, supervisors this week decided, after hearing from constituents, that instead of placing a rushed Measure A on the ballot, they'll let the voters consider the HCRI and make a reasoned decision. The county-backed plan would have made amendments to the county's Commercial Cannabis Land Use Ordinance, or CCLUO, how's that for a mouthful, to address public concerns about grow sizes and to lower the cap on the total number of cultivation permits. But supervisors at Tuesday's meeting ultimately decided to abandon what would have been a rushed process and let the voters cast their ballots. Once voters have weighed in, the county can decide from there what changes remain necessary.
Obviously, 8,000 people signed an initiative, and so there is thoughts and concerns out there. And additionally, constituents have been, I think, hitting all of us with their thoughts and concerns. And so the conversations have been good. It does feel a little rushed, and that something that could have been, maybe easy, which was size, which I think is really the issue throughout the communities, and what that initiative was based on signature-wise now has grown to something a lot larger. And so with that, I'm going to make a motion that we do not continue forward with action at this time, and that we just wait and see.
We're going to still have to be taking a pause between now and March with relationship to any sort of policy work because we don't know what's going to happen. This measure has really just basically made a year's delay in any sort of positive movement to get anything done.
I think it kind of puts us in a perspective that we should probably do everything in our powers to make sure Measure A doesn't pass. I'm not getting correspondence from anybody saying it's the greatest thing since buttered popcorn, except for Mark and Betsy. I was at the meeting, you were at the original meeting and things like that. The system worked. We're changing this as it goes. With that being said, we are trying to fix what we did. And I know that a ballot measure is not the way to do it. But you got to remember, 10 years ago at this time, we had 15,000 grows, they said. Now they say we have 2,500. So, and I don't see a lot of growth, but I think we should leave the opportunity there for people to come into the business if they want to, or to have some sort of vision of their businesses rather than not giving them any vision at all.
We'll be right back after this short break.
Get ready to embark on an exciting journey with your children.
I'll bet kids really like this.
KEET TV presents a premiere screening of Field Trip, an educational 9-part series designed for kids of all ages.
Oh, fun!
Join us on Saturday, December 9th at 11:30 at the Eureka Library. Following the screening, we have experiments and activities for your kindergarten through 5th grade kids, guaranteed to ignite their curiosity and enthusiasm for science and math.
Pay attention in school, kids. You need to do math.
Get more details and register at keet.org/events.
Thanks for coming back. Thanks for joining us. In studio now with us are Natalynne DeLapp and Ross Gordon from the Humboldt County Growers Alliance. Thank you guys for taking the time out. I know you are in a busy time, obviously. So we just had this big supervisors meeting where this plan to create an alternative initiative to sort of counter Measure A was ditched in favor of letting the voters decide. But before we get there, I'd like to do a little bit of sort of historic, elucidating. Natalynne, as I mentioned in my intro, I grew up with the idea that legalization would be this huge thing for Humboldt County. In a lot of ways it has, but it hasn't lived up to its promise, and there's been a number of hiccups along the way, a lot of them bureaucratic or political in terms of how we've regulated this thing coming off the ground. If you don't mind trying to give us a global sort of description of the process that got us here in terms of why it's been hit and miss in terms of the regulatory rules, and how hard it was to get through all of that to get to the point that we are now before Measure A is even voted on.
Absolutely. So I have been with Humboldt County Growers Alliance since the founding in late 2016, right after the passage of Prop 64. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people think that legalization started with Prop 64, which was a voter initiative. Has a lot of complexity, makes it very difficult to change.
Sure.
But a lot of the public doesn't remember that the legislature actually created the Medical Marijuana Regulation Safety Act that was signed by Governor Brown in 2015. And that's really what precipitated our county's ability to develop the first cannabis land use ordinance. And I, like you, was probably also a little naive. And I thought that this was going to be a really great opportunity, not just for Humboldt County, but the Emerald Triangle and California as a whole, to develop a new regulatory structure that was actually going to be supportive of cannabis, of the environment, understanding climate change, wealth distribution. I had all of those hopes and dreams as well. And so MMRSA was passed. That is what then allowed Humboldt County to develop our first cannabis land use ordinance. We were the first county in California to have a environmentally legally defensible land use ordinance. And that was the CMMLUO. Well, we call it Ordinance 1.0 because that's kind of hard.
Okay, this 1.0, yeah.
And with that, back in 2015, there was an estimated 15,000 grow sites in Humboldt County, maybe 6,000 to 8,000 operators. And that first year, everybody started to come into compliance. And this is before Prop 64 passed. This is the summer of 2016.
And this is medicinal marijuana, right?
This is medicinal. Medicinal.
Yeah.
This is pre-adult use.
Yeah.
And almost 2,400 operators in Humboldt County came in the door and said, I'm willing to be part of this legal regime.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Absolutely.
That's like 35 to 40% of our operators said, I'm willing to be part of this new paradigm.
Yeah.
Then Prop 64 was passed. We realized that our county and our community needed to get organized so that we would be able to be at the front line through the regulatory structure and changes that were going to be happening at the state and local level.
Yeah.
So after Prop 64 passed, it had a baby with MMRSA, and that's the Medical and Adult Use Cannabis Regulation Safety Act. And that's why our county had to do a second land use ordinance.
Okay.
So that's our land use ordinance number 2, ordinance 2.0. That has a full environmental document, an environmental impact report that was associated with that document as well.
But that is a huge thing. Having an
That
environmental document that's gone through the process is expensive, time-consuming. There's a lot of detail.
It was a lot of public process, and all of the agencies were involved. So that's Department of Fish and Wildlife, Water Board. The state was reviewing that document. So we've gone through 2 cannabis land use ordinances. We've probably had upwards of 4 dozen meetings minimum, public meetings through the Planning Commission, through the Board of Supervisors. Drafts are reviewed by the public. Public is allowed to review these drafts. And, I had a reporter ask me recently, well, do you like it? I said, my like is not relevant. Does it work?
Yeah.
It's a tool. These are tools that have been used by our county to bring a mostly unregulated industry into conformance with modern laws.
Yeah.
And to that end, it has worked. Unfortunately, there has been a dramatic fall off. We've lost a lot of operators. A lot of people, either their project sites were not able to conform with these laws, they ran out of money, they ran out of energy, all sorts of things have happened, and we've lost a lot of operators. Today, 8 years later, after 2015, we have had an 89% reduction in overall cultivation in this county.
Wow.
And so we have really come a long way.
Yeah. So when we talk about that drop, it's not due then to the regulatory scheme that was put forward, or is it partly in response to that, or
it's both.
a number of things?
It's a lot. We have one of the most complex regulatory systems for cannabis. Cannabis is not treated like other agriculture. We are still coming out of prohibition, and so it is treated differently. And there's additional taxes, fees, all sorts of costs that are levied specifically because of this cannabis plant that contains THC.
Yeah. Ross, were you around for that whole process as well?
So I got involved slightly later.
Okay.
And so I moved up to Humboldt County in 2019 to start working for Humboldt County Growers Alliance. And I've been working on state policy as far back as 2018. Okay. But when Proposition 64 passed, that was a little bit before my time, at least being involved on the policy side.
How would you, but you've seen the bigger picture, and have you seen what other counties have done? How do we compare to that and also to the state regs? Are we right in line? Are we more stringent? Are we requiring more of our growers? Where are we at?
It's sort of a funny question because in many ways, the experience of a Humboldt County farmer, the average Humboldt County farmer, is that the county process has been incredibly complex to navigate. Yeah. And that's true. That is the reality. There are so many different state agencies involved. There's so much work which has to be done in the county, so many conditions of approval. But ironically, one of the reasons, the major reason that the county process is so complicated is because that was necessary to conform with state law. Yeah. And that state law was essentially, it was a little more complicated than this, but basically set by Proposition 64, which was an initiative which didn't just legalize cannabis. It was 62 pages long. It was tremendously detailed, and it included a whole set of very detailed regulations that about what you have to do to become legal. So in some ways, Humboldt County is actually succeeded in creating a system which can get people through that state process. Mm-hmm. There are other counties in California where the process has seemed simpler at the local level, and then when farmers try to get their state permit, the state says, well, you haven't done enough, you haven't hit these certain benchmarks. And so I think sometimes there's a perception that the complexity at the county, some of it is just because things could be better, but a lot of it is because the state sets a bar which is very difficult to clear.
Now, one of the things that's keep coming up, and obviously we have the HCRI, and then the county was thinking about potentially having an initiative that would make changes. What, to your mind, are the changes that need to be made to the 2.0 version that's currently in place? Do we need to craft a whole new version, as they mentioned at the meeting, version 3.0, to use the vernacular, or is there just some minor amendments that you think? I mean, part of that depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to save the farmers or to help the farmers survive, that might include one package of changes. But if it's to fix what people perceive as too many farmers or farms that are too big, that might be another package. Where do you guys stand on that?
I would say that it's very hard to fix public perception.
Absolutely.
What actually needs to change may require a scalpel, not a sledgehammer.
Gotcha.
And for our farmers who are remaining, they need more flexibility and opportunity. So there are some places where there may be overly onerous regulations that are built on old prohibition thinking. Like I said, the first ordinance was written in 2015. So we've got 8 years of data to say maybe that doesn't need to happen. Maybe we can allow on-farm processing, aka trimming. There are other opportunities around farm-based sales or tourism or even just greater flexibility for how that farm is allowed to grow and develop and evolve. So we don't want to just talk about what needs to be restricted. We also need to talk about what needs to be allowed to open up.
Yeah.
And if there are environmental considerations that need to be updated, then we can do that through a legitimate, open, public process. It's complicated, it's tiring, frankly it's kind of boring because you have to show up, you have to read, you have to write comments, and you have to participate, and we don't always get what we want.
Yeah.
And it's the decision maker's job to thread that needle to try to meet the best needs for the community as a whole. And it certainly is not the farmers dictating that, because everybody has a seat at the table and we all get our needs met a little bit, mostly.
Yeah, absolutely. Never what any person wants. At the supervisors meeting, there was some discussion about how they've gotten a lot of feedback from constituents. There were some who were saying that there is a perception out there, and again, you can't fix that, but is there any truth to the fact that there are massive grows out there that are overwhelming folks in regular neighborhoods or that are somehow problematic for the keeping of peace in Humboldt County? Ross?
I think there's a handful of projects that people are largely expressing concern about. There was a 26-acre project which was proposed in Humboldt County a few years back, which is HCGA we really had a concern with. I know there are other projects which are under litigation, which are typically the larger projects. But I think what gets lost in that, oftentimes in the public perception, is the fact that we've got about 750 state-licensed independent farms right now in Humboldt County. When I say independent, I mean these are different people operating 750 farms. And 98% of them are under an acre, and half of them are under a quarter acre. And so I think it's important to be really clear about where the concerns are. Right? If there's a concern about how a particular project was implemented, if there's a concern about whether a particular project is following its conditions of approval, that's an issue with that project. I think where it's easy to run into difficulty is to say, I have a problem with a particular farm, and that means the other 750 farmers must be getting away with something. And the reality is those 750 farmers are overwhelmingly local Humboldt County residents, often multi-generational, operating on essentially postage size scales.
Yeah. So can you describe for us what you think if Measure A were to pass? I hate to, this gets into a conversation that we have a lot on this show, seemingly, this Measure A thing. But what about Measure A in particular do you guys think presents a threat to the farmers as they now stand?
I'm happy to take that one.
Okay.
So I think there's a couple different elements of this. One is just, it's really a process question. Which is that if you want to create an ordinance that is going to be viable for small farmers to be able to survive, that's going to be protective of the environment, that's going to be protective of public safety, that's going to be productive of neighborhoods, as Natalynne, I think, alluded to, you need to create a public process where everyone involved has the opportunity to give their input, and then you have time, and I think this is really important also, you have time to sort through all of that, because it's not necessarily easy. Our current ordinances are 143 pages in Humboldt County. We've got Department of Fish and Wildlife, we've got the Water Board, we've got the Department of Cannabis Control, we've got so many people, so many cooks in this kitchen. Getting everyone together with the time to really make a considered decision is how you're going to end up with good policy for everyone. The fundamental problem for us with Measure A from a process perspective is that it didn't do any of that. And essentially it's the product of a couple of people in a San Francisco law firm behind closed doors rewriting Humboldt's cannabis ordinances in their entirety. To such a degree of complexity, it took our planning department 27 pages of analysis just to start to unpack like what the impacts of that are going to be. So to the question of what is in that analysis that's so concerning, just to put it very briefly, just to hit on a few points, I think the number one thing I would really flag about it is the restrictions on what is called expansion within the initiative. And the initiative really wants to prevent, quote unquote, expansion of farms. But if you look at the definition of expansion within the initiative, it is so incredibly broad that it can concern basically any activity that occurs on a farm. Essentially, any structure that is used in connection with cultivation is considered expansion. So this would mean drying sheds if a farmer wants to do trimming on farm. If a farmer wants to put in infrastructure to facilitate tourism, if they want to put up a greenhouse, if they want to put in even environmental improvements like water storage or renewable energy. These are the sort of things the planning department report talks about, which are very normal, simple agricultural activities, which this initiative seeks to restrict. And I think if you look at the 38 pages of this initiative in total, what you see is that there's really this desire to create a system, an overarching system that is maximally restrictive on anything a cannabis farmer can do, regardless of the desirability or impact of what that thing might be.
And that sort of, I mean, in a business like farming, there has to be a lot of maneuverability and diversification, lots of ways that you try to survive if things go a little south and if they're inhibited in how they can maneuver and, make security for themselves. Even more people are going to go under or may not want to get into the business to begin with. So now I'm curious because at the last meeting where this was discussed, I think the HCGA said it's not ideal, but we might be in favor of an initiative from the county to sort of counter Measure A. Then they decided not to. What's your official reaction to that move? And do you think they did the right thing by letting voters go ahead and wrestle with this? I mean, they have to anyway, but I mean, without,
We supported the county giving voters a choice and recommended that the county simply limit the size of new cultivation to no greater than 1 acre. Unfortunately, what started to happen is the supervisors added lots of extra little projects to it to meet their different constituent interests. Yeah. And by each of those extra additions adds complexity. Sure. And so, unfortunately, the voters are not going to have a choice. The voters are going to have one choice, Measure A, yes or no. Yeah. What I do believe is that the supervisors and the planning department have really heard from the community over the last year and a half or almost 2 years. And collectively, the voices are being heard. And so I have no doubt that after March 5th, after we defeat Measure A, the Board of Supervisors would be committed to doing a revised Ordinance 3.0. Because that is the supervisor's job. Listen to their constituents and make changes. That is what we need in government, is adaptive management. Yeah. We all agree that we need adaptive management. The biggest fundamental problem from my perspective with Measure A is that it amends the Humboldt County General Plan. And it cannot be changed except for by future voter initiative. And so even during the next general plan update.
So it ties their hands effectively.
In
forever.
20 years, that section would not be able to be changed. And I can definitely imagine a future in 20 years where cannabis needs to be amended. And so tying us to voter initiatives to be able to get even basic changes is complex and it's just bad government. It's going to cost everybody more money to have to go through that type of process.
One of the supervisors at the meeting on Tuesday said it's an iterative process. You write rules and you see how they're working, and if they need changes, you fix, you adjust, and you just try to come up with the best policy possible over time. Which brings me sort of back to Proposition 64. Was that the wrong vehicle for legalization, and is there any way to adjust that now? I mean, I know this might be a bigger fight than people want to have because it might, confuse and distract people, but at the same time, would there be a way to go back and say, okay, look, maybe a more appropriate way to legalize would be to do A, B, and C or whatever, but instead we're tied to a voter-approved initiative that, like you said, is enormously complicated and sets out a lot of what can be done. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
So I think there's a number of problems with Prop 64. The fact that it is so long, it's so detailed, it's not what I think most people took it to be, which is just, do you want to legalize cannabis or not?
It's often a problem with initiatives.
Absolutely. It's a very prescriptive scheme. Proposition 64, I think it's worth saying, is tremendously easier to amend than Measure A is.
Okay.
So Proposition 64, it says within the text, there are certain segments that can be amended by the legislature by majority vote, and there are certain segments that can be amended by the legislature with a 2/3 vote. Most meaningful meaningful policies require a 2/3 vote of the legislature. That's hard to get, but it's not impossible to get.
Yeah.
Measure A, by contrast, the significant majority of it, particularly the substantive provisions, can never be amended under any circumstance without an additional initiative. So Proposition 64 isn't quite as set in stone as Measure A would be if it passes. But I do think, and I think increasingly people across the political spectrum would agree, it would be very helpful to have some more flexibility than Proposition 64 affords.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be great if, even at the bare minimum, there were a statewide ballot measure that just says Proposition 64 can be amended by the legislature like any other normal law.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have to go through some special process. You shouldn't have to go back to the voters for any particular change to Prop 64. Just let the legislature by majority vote amend it. And I think there's a lot of improvements that could be made if that path were followed.
Absolutely, absolutely. From your lips to God's ears, I guess, right? One other thing I wanted to talk about was this new law that recently passed. It's Mike McGuire's bill, I guess, but it's the Humboldt County limitations on cannabis permitting. No, wait, that's not it. Is that it? No, that's not it. State Senator, the Cannabis Licensing Reform Act, excuse me. But it allows cannabis farmers to either pause their license fee, which can be quite high, and maintain an active license, or reduce their license size based on crop size and thereby saving the farmer money. We talked about this a little bit before the show, but Humboldt County has something like that in place, but this is still a vast improvement. Am I right?
Yeah, this is something that's really important, and it's something that farmers have been asking for now for many years. And it really came, it's something we've always heard, but it really came to a head. 2021, we had the crash in market conditions. Wholesale prices really fell through the floor. And at the same time, we had a statewide drought. And of course, cannabis farmers wanted to do what any farmer would want to do in that situation, which is a lot of them wanted to either take the year off cultivation and come back next year, or they wanted to grow less than they did the year previously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Humboldt has had a process to be able to accomplish this for a couple of years now, but the state did not. The way the state regulations were structured, you essentially either had to pay your full permit fee to grow area that maybe you're not even trying to grow, which can be many thousands of dollars, or if you don't want to cultivate that season, you forfeit your license, and that's permanent. You don't get that back without going all the way through a very complicated process to get it back. So this was really a common sense bill. Like it's amazing that it's across the finish line, and I think it's also worth saying there was no opposition in the legislature once this was introduced, because of course I think everyone can agree farmers need flexibility. It's good for the environment for folks to be able to cut back when they want to cut back. And so it's something that we're really happy to see passed. I think farmers are really happy to see passed. And I think it's a great example of how more restrictive does not always mean more protective for the environment or for the public or for anyone. There are basic forms of flexibility that farmers need in order to be able to respond in good faith to what's going on in the world around them. And I think this is a great example of legislation that does that.
We are out of time. That went by fast. Thank you guys so much for a detailed conversation.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll have you back on again, and sooner than 2 years. That's it for tonight. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. Stay informed.